When I opened the thin envelope from the university's financial office, I already knew what it would say. I had memorized the sting of rejection, not from the school, but from my parents. Inside was a formal note confirming that my tuition hadn't been paid and I'd be unenrolled from the upcoming semester unless the outstanding balance was cleared within 10 days. 10 days. After 3 years of pulling straight A's, working 2 part-time jobs, tutoring on weekends, and turning down every party and trip that didn't come with a scholarship, this was how my journey was about to end. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. I stared at the words numb. I had already begged them, repeatedly. Just one more semester, I had said. Just until I graduate, please. But their voices echoed in my head like cruel bells of disappointment. "We're strapped for cash, sweetie," my mom had told me with that dismissive tone she reserved just for me. "You know we've got your sister's Paris semester to cover." I wasn't even surprised anymore. My sister, Chloe, could whisper a dream and it would materialize by morning. She wanted to spend a semester abroad to feel inspired. And suddenly, there were non-refundable flights to France, 5-star dorm housing, and designer luggage piled high in the driveway. I, on the other hand, had to submit a full proposal just to ask for $100 to cover lab fees. I'd stopped hoping a long time ago. But this? Them letting me drown while they sipped wine under the Eiffel Tower with Chloe? It was my breaking point. I didn't argue with them when I showed them the notice. I didn't cry this time. I just nodded, folded the paper neatly, and said, "Thanks for letting me know where I stand." My dad looked up from his phone briefly, already irritated by the guilt trip he assumed was coming. My mom sighed. "We're not made of money, you know." I stopped talking after that. Not a single call, not a text. No updates. I figured if I wasn't worth their support, they weren't worth my struggle. But what they didn't know was that I didn't give up. I never have. I went to the school administration and explained my situation, not as a sob story, but as a practical plea. One professor who had watched me come alive in her classes vouched for me. Another connected me with a scholarship foundation that helped students in crisis. I applied for emergency funding, sold off some personal belongings, and picked up an overnight shift at a local print shop. I averaged 4 hours of sleep a night. My body hurt, my mind throbbed, but I stayed in school, quietly, invisibly, without a dime from the people who were supposed to believe in me. Meanwhile, their Instagram stories flooded my phone whenever I dared to open the app. Chloe clinking glasses on the sand. My parents posing with her in front of the Eiffel Tower, hashtagging it #, family over everything. The irony made my stomach turn. The day I walked across that stage, I didn't invite them. I didn't need applause from the people who had bet against me. Instead, I arranged for 2 seats in the front row, reserved, but unnamed. I had a hunch they'd show up anyway. After all, appearances meant everything to them, and Chloe had likely told them about the ceremony when she flew back for the summer. When I stepped out in my cap and gown, top of my class, honored with the department's prestigious award in neuroscience, I scanned the crowd, and I saw them, there, dressed like proud parents, trying to blend in with the crowd they had done nothing to deserve. And that was when the real story began. My heels echoed through the backstage hallway as I waited for my name to be called. The air was tense, thick with nerves from other graduates and the hum of 1,000 whispered conversations from the audience beyond the curtain. But I wasn't nervous. I wasn't even thinking about the stage. I was thinking about those 2 seats in the front row. My parents had indeed shown up. I recognized my mother's distinct laugh from backstage, shrill and practiced, the kind she used when trying to appear impressed by someone richer than her. My father had even worn a suit, something he hadn't bothered to do for my high school graduation, where he showed up late and left early because work emergencies don't wait. I imagine he thought showing up now would magically erase years of neglect. But I hadn't forgotten. I had counted every skipped recital, every brushed-off science fair, every rolled eye when I brought home an achievement Chloe never dreamed of earning, and now they sat in those reserved seats, probably expecting to be thanked. They didn't know I had requested those seats for a very specific reason. Valedictorian of the graduating class, the dean announced, a student whose perseverance, brilliance, and strength define this university's values. Please welcome Samantha Lee Carter." Applause thundered through the auditorium. I took a deep breath, stepped onto the stage, and looked directly at them. My mother's smile froze mid-expression. My father squinted like he couldn't quite believe it was me. Chloe was seated beside them, holding her phone, lips parted in disbelief. I walked across the stage. I didn't wave. I didn't blow kisses. I didn't even smile. I shook the dean's hand, accepted the scroll, then moved to the podium for my speech. That was the moment I had waited for. Not out of revenge, but for the reckoning. "Thank you," I began, my voice calm, deliberate. This journey wasn't easy, it wasn't linear, and it wasn't always fair, but I'm proud to say I made it here today, with the help of people who believed in me when it would have been easier to forget me. The audience clapped politely. My parents leaned forward, thinking maybe I was warming up to praise them. "I want to thank my professors," I continued, eyes locking with Dr. Miller, who had stayed after hours to coach me through complex research projects. The donors who stepped in to keep my education alive when others walked away, the staff who noticed I was hungry when I said I was fine, and the strangers who gave me grace when those closest to me didn't. Silence, the polite kind, the stunned kind. "I didn't come from a family that celebrated effort," I went on, my gaze landing on the first row like a spotlight. "They celebrated optics, appearances, a perfect Instagram life." Chloe turned scarlet. My mother began to fidget. My father stared straight ahead, stone-faced. "They said they couldn't afford my tuition," I said, not trembling, not crying, and then flew across the world to take selfies in Paris. "They said I was dramatic, that I didn't need special treatment. But education isn't a luxury, it's a right, and I claimed mine, without them." Gasps, then applause. Actual applause. The kind that swells from people who get it, the kind that makes you realize you weren't crazy for feeling invisible. I left the podium before the applause died down. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. After the ceremony, there was a reception. I made my rounds, hugged classmates, posed for photos with professors and friends. I could feel their eyes on me, my parents standing off to the side like awkward guests at a party they weren't invited to. They tried to approach. My father opened his mouth, but I walked past him like he was another stranger. "Wait," my mother called out. "We were here. We came." "So did everyone else," I replied. "But they actually earned the right to celebrate?" Chloe had the decency to look ashamed. She didn't say anything, maybe for the first time in her life, but I didn't need apologies. I wasn't looking for redemption. I was free of the need to be seen by people who chose to be blind. What they didn't know was that I had already made arrangements. The school's alumni committee had contacted me about a job placement opportunity, and I'd taken it. The offer included housing. I'd be moving, out of state, out of their reach and into a future they couldn't control. And as a final act of closure, I mailed them a copy of the university bill they'd refused to pay. With it was a note that read, "Paid in full, not by you, never needed you." They never responded, but I didn't expect them to. Because silence, just like distance, is sometimes the loudest justice of all. Months passed, and life began to bloom in ways I never imagined. My new role at the Research Institute brought me to a city where people judged me not by my family name or social connections, but by my work, my mind, and my presence. For once, I wasn't Chloe's sister or the other Carter kid. I was just me, Samantha Carter, respected, welcomed, and finally seen. I didn't hear from my parents again. No calls, no emails, no half-hearted attempts to reconnect. And honestly, that silence felt like peace. But then, one day, I received a message from my old neighbor, Mrs. Tilda, the sweet woman who used to bring over banana bread when I was little. She told me my parents had sold the house. Apparently, they were downsizing after what she called some serious financial missteps. I didn't care to learn the details, but what struck me wasn't the loss of the house, it was that my parents hadn't even told me. They had erased me so thoroughly that even their failures no longer included me. I thought I'd feel bitter or smug, but I didn't. I felt clean free. To close the chapter, I boxed up my old college photos, my awards, and the letter of recommendation my professor had written calling me one of the finest minds he'd mentored in 2 decades. I looked at them not as proof for anyone else, but as quiet reminders for me. Proof that I had climbed the mountain, alone, that I'd become the kind of woman they never thought was worth investing in, and that I had turned their rejection into my motivation. In the end, I didn't need to take revenge. Success was enough. Silence was the most honest conversation we ever had.